Good afternoon, friend. We are out in my orchard. This orchard was planted many, many years ago by the previous owners, and I am standing in front of this absolutely magnificent tree that is just loaded with plums. Now, this tree has already been harvested by many friends and family of mine, plus my family. For the last week and a half or so, we come out here every single day and eat plums fresh off this tree. It's been a really fun family thing we've been doing together. Last year, we did not get any plums off this tree, and this year it is absolutely loaded. Multiple families have been benefiting from eating off this tree already, and we're gonna do some fun things with this so that we can enjoy these plums more than just fresh. Today, we're gonna make a dessert that we're gonna enjoy tonight. Plus, I'm gonna put some up so that later this harvest season, we can actually turn them into some other delicious recipes, plus some other things for snacking. Let me just show you how beautiful these are. They're so perfectly ripe right now. Some of them aren't quite ripe. Some of them are way too ripe and are on the ground. That's okay. I'll share those ones on the ground with the deer. But there's still plenty on this tree for my family to enjoy fresh eating throughout the next probably 2 weeks or so, just right off the tree. Plus, I'm gonna actually turn it into a delicious dessert, even though this alone is what we've been having for dessert for the last week or so. So good. I'm definitely not gonna get all the plums today, but I'm gonna get a good amount. So it's kind of dark in here, but there are different ripenesses of these plums. Those two look a little overripe. This one's underripe. So when I'm picking, I'm trying to pick perfectly ripe. They're still firm, but I can tell they're juicy. They're not about to just explode. And I think this is enough for today. There are still probably thousands of plums on here, but we're gonna start with this for today for the 3 different projects we're gonna get to today. I'm not sure how well dried plums are gonna be received by my family, so I think this is gonna be a good test batch. I will show you what they look like coming out of the dehydrator. Also, I want to make the dessert, and then I wanna leave some on there for fresh eating, and I need some more ideas. I'm thinking plum jam, which we're not gonna get to today, and I wanna make hot sauce out of this. So I'm gonna show you how I'm gonna preserve this and get this ready so that it's ready to make hot sauce later in the season. Now they're inside. We do need to get them washed up. I wish you could smell this because they smell absolutely incredible. But before I can wash them, I need to go get my colander and wash it because it is out in the garden. I brought this out in the garden, I don't know, a couple days ago when I was doing some harvesting, and I left it out there. Now I understand why my mom was always annoyed when her kitchen utensils were missing, and it was probably me. It was probably my dad too. It was probably all of us siblings, but I am the problem in my household. I am the one that is leaving kitchen utensils all over the house and garden. So I gotta come out here and get my colander. I didn't actually use it to harvest, but I brought it out and then never brought it back in. Let's see. I'm pretty sure, yep, there it is. Here we go. And this pumpkin vine, I think, grew about 5 feet in the last day, which is pretty exciting. Looks like we got a baby pumpkin there. Hopefully it was fully pollinated. And some pretty big pumpkins right there. And you know what I saw the other day when I was out here? Where was it? Because I have, oh, there it is. I have zucchini plants everywhere. Since I'm right here and I don't want this to get any bigger, I'm gonna go ahead and pull that. Even though today is all about the plum, you don't want to let zucchini get too big if you can help it. And this morning when I was out here, I noticed that there are quite a few green beans that I don't want to go another day. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab these real quick too. I think green beans are my new favorite thing to grow in the green stock, especially bush bean varieties, because you can see how the plant falls over like this, and it is so much easier to harvest like this than when they're all falling on each other in a garden bed. So I think next year I'm gonna grow all my bush bean green beans in the green stalks. I pulled out my dehydrator, and one thing I did not really take into account is that this dehydrator was in my seed grow room all winter when I started seeds, and it was out there the whole time my chicks have been out there. So this thing was very, 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 very dusty. So I vacuumed the whole thing. It's been completely wiped out, front, back, inside. I have the trays in my dishwasher, and I did a quick run cycle. So by the time we need to use this, it'll all be clean and ready to go. But we've got lots of other things we're gonna get to before we get to that dehydrator. I've got a couple dish towels in here that are totally clean, but they are a little bit stained because I do projects like this. And this is the perfect application for these, is we're gonna get our plums washed up. And they could put some juice on these towels, so I wanna use my least nice ones. I'm not gonna wash this zucchini yet, and I'm not gonna wash these green beans. I think this is gonna be the perfect amount for our dinner tonight. I have more green bean plants, but they're out in the garden, and I'm not gonna go out there right now. It's getting kind of warm, so I'm gonna spend right now inside. And if I need more green beans for tonight's dinner, I can go out there and get those. But we've got this big bowl of plums, and they need to be washed. So I think I'm just gonna wash a few at a time. Let me get this rinsed out since this was sitting out there. I'm gonna put this over here. And I don't wanna bruise these. Some of them are very, very ripe. Some of them are not as ripe. I'm just gonna start laying those out on this towel like this. I got them all washed up, and there were a few in here that were a little too overripe or damaged. Yeah, this one has a big bug hole in it. Actually, it's not too big. I could probably cut that off. But these are just, they are not bad. So what I'm gonna do, but I don't really wanna use them because they're so overripe. I'm gonna give those to the chicks, and they will love them as a little snack. But before we do anything else, I need to get this oven preheated to 400, and we are going to make a almond paste galette that's gonna have plums on the top. Now, I found this recipe, which I can link down below for you, and it's called an plum and almond frangipane tart. And I was thinking I was only gonna make one of these, but we're going over to my parents' house for dinner. And I made 2 crusts. Let me bring you back to earlier today, and I'm gonna show you how to make pie crust from scratch. This is an almond and plum frangipane tart, which sounds more complicated than a galette. Galettes are really easy. And my mom, when I was talking about the dinner for that huge dinner party, if you saw out in our backyard, she wanted a plum frangipane tart. And I want to try this with you. I don't think everyone in my family is gonna like this, so I'm just gonna make one, and then you and I will do a taste test with Josh, and then I'll just package the rest up. And when we go to dinner with my mom's house, they can have the rest of it for dessert. That will work out perfect. So what I think we're gonna do is get going on the tart first, so that can bake while we are doing our other few projects we wanna do. I don't know why I didn't think of freeze drying plums as well, because freeze-dried fruit, dehydrated fruit is probably my family's favorite way to eat fruit, but my extended family, my nieces and nephews, their favorite way to have fruit is freeze-dried. So I might do a bunch of freeze-dried plums too. We'll just see how today goes. But let me bring you back to earlier. I'm gonna show you how I made this pie crust. I made 2, one for now, and one I'm gonna throw in the freezer. Next time I want a quiche or a tart or a galette, I can just pull out the dough from the freezer. Earlier this morning, I had a little bit of time, like a pocket of time, where I was like, oh, I could make the pie crust for later, stick it in the fridge, and then it'd be perfect and ready for me when we go to make these galettes. Now, to make pie crust, if you're new to it, it is a little bit of a learning curve, but it is so worth it. It tastes delicious. I did not think I liked pie crust until I started making it homemade, and now I love it. So I like to do it in my food processor because it's so easy. I have flour, just a little bit of sugar to help with browning, salt. I mix that together, and then I add butter. And this time I was kind of in a hurry. I don't know if you could tell. This day was extremely busy. I had a lot of things going on, and I was a little rushed. And so when you're working with pastry in a food processor, you do need to be careful to not over blitz it. A lot of times I will make pastry by hand, like I'll cut in the butter into the flour and not use my food processor, because you're less likely to get the butter too small. My pastry turns out perfect, but I'm just telling you that on this day, I blitzed my butter a little too much. It got a little too small, and I added a little too much water, but that's okay. Even when it doesn't turn out perfect, there's so much butter and deliciousness in homemade pie crust, it is hard to mess up. It still is going to come out delicious. Now, this, you can tell that I'm using a white all-purpose flour. I have yet to experiment using fresh milled flour. Well, that's not true. At Thanksgiving, I did a 50-50. I did 50% fresh milled and 50% all-purpose, but it wasn't my favorite. So I do need to go down a journey of learning how to make pastry and pie crust using some fresh milled flour. But on this day, I was just going with what I knew. I didn't want to kind of add another layer. I was busy enough. I thought we're just going to go with white all-purpose flour, and it's going to taste delicious, and I'm less likely to mess it up. So here I am just pushing the pastry together. Normally when I make pie crust, I like to have a little bit bigger of chunks of butter. I just milled it a little bit too much, but it still tastes delicious and turns out super flaky. I'll show you in the end. And I'm going to just wrap up each of the pie crust in a little bit of parchment paper and get these in the freezer. I have been meaning to set aside some time to make like 10 pie crusts, throw them in the freezer, and then when I want pie crust, I don't have to go through this effort. It is not hard to make pie crust, but it does kind of make a mess. You can see I've got flour, I've got butter. It kind of makes a mess. So I don't really like having to make it every time I want it. I like to have a bunch of pie crusts in my freezer because it freezes beautifully.
but I just haven't had the time to do that. So at some point in the next future time, you and I are going to make about 10 pie crust and put them in the freezer, but that day is not today. So here I've got my 2 pie crust in rounds. I'm going to wrap them in parchment paper, put them in the fridge, and then they will be ready for me when I am ready to use them.
Now that you saw how I made this, I'm gonna let this come up to room temperature just a little bit. We need to make our almond paste filling, and I'm not actually following that tart recipe. I can link that tart recipe down below for you, but I am going to make the almond paste filling based off the almond paste filling that I make when I make banquet, which is a Dutch pastry that we make at Christmas time. It's Josh's family's traditional Christmas dessert. Now I'm gonna cut the recipe in half, but I'm not making up each component. I'm just taking different components from different tried and true recipes and adding them together. So it should turn out, hopefully. So that's 1 cup almond paste, half a cup of granulated sugar. I'm gonna do half a cup of powdered sugar. And yes, I'm not being super exact with this because I don't think it needs to be. 2 eggs. Can you tell the difference? This was my homegrown egg. That is a store-bought egg. Some salt, almond paste, or almond extract. And that is everything for the almond filling. That should get us to a good consistency right there. You could do this in your mixer, in the food processor, right after you make your crust if you wanted to, but I already have that in the sink, so we're just using this bowl. That looks like a good amount, I think, for our galette. Now, one thing I love about a galette is they are super forgiving and super adaptable. I've made apple galettes, strawberry galettes. Actually, I take that back. I don't think I've ever made a strawberry galette. I've made all different kind of like blueberry galettes, blueberry cornmeal galettes, raspberry galettes. And it's basically just like a open-faced pie. Now, I will be frank with you, this is not the best pie crust I've ever made, but I think it'll turn out delicious. I added too much water. So if you're new to making pie crust, the key is to try to use as little as possible water and try to keep those butter pieces a little bit on the bigger side, especially if you're using a food processor, because it's really easy to overprocess the butter. But I was kind of in a hurry this morning, and I feel like I'm rushing right now, so I'm gonna tell myself, slow down. You have all afternoon to get these couple projects done. I don't have to worry about dinner tonight. I'm not really in a time crunch. I mean, we do have to be out of here at a certain time, but that gives me more than enough time to do what I need to do. So relax and enjoy spending time in the kitchen. Okay, so now that we have that established, we're gonna get this rolled out. And the nice thing about when you make galettes as opposed to a pie is you almost always, you use the whole pie crust versus when you're making pie. Sometimes a little bit of that pie crust ends up not being needed. You can always bake that extra pie crust into cookies. But this will just use the whole thing in the galette. So I'm trying to get this to be a round-ish shape. I've never made a plum galette. I've also, now that I'm thinking about it, I know I've made a cherry one. I've actually never made any dessert with plums. I had a plum tree at my last house, and 2 out of the 3 years we had the tree, it produced fruit, and it wasn't a crazy amount of fruit, so we mostly just ate the fruit fresh. I made some plum sauce and some plum hot sauce. And last year here at this house, we did not get any plums. And then at my last house, the plum tree died. So the last year we were there, we didn't get any plums either. And I remember the previous owner of this house saying that the plums kind of come in waves. You either have a bumper crop or not very many, and last year I don't even think we harvested one plum. So you can see I'm putting this almond paste, I'm giving myself about 1.5 inches or so along the edge. Now I'm gonna go over here, and I wanna get plums that are about the same size, that are nice and ripe, but not too ripe. I want there to be a little bit of tartness and sweetness in them to balance out the sweetness from the almond filling. And I want them to bake up nicely. I feel like if they're gonna be overripe, they're gonna fall apart a little bit in the baking process. Okay, I don't know how many plums I need, so we're gonna start with this. Oh yeah, if they're too ripe, I can't get the pit off, so maybe what I'll have to do is cut around the pit, like that. That'll work. And I think what I'm gonna do, because those are so juicy, I'm gonna put a little bit of flour on here. To sop up those juices. Again, I'm just going with my instincts here. Hopefully this turns out and is beautiful and delicious. And I'm starting in the middle and I'm working my way out. Here's where the beauty of the galette comes in. All you have to do is gently fold up the corners. Try to pinch them together. I'm going to use some of that plum juice to kind of glue the pastry together.
One of my sisters who was over for the dinner party, her kids picked a ton of plums to bring home, and it was more plums than they could eat fresh, and so she was trying to think of things to do with it. And I don't think we talked about making plum galettes. Maybe we did. I didn't think we did, but she texted me on this night that she made a plum galette for her family, and hers turned out absolutely beautiful as well. She didn't do the almond paste, she just did the plums, and it was just funny that we made the same thing on the same day.
Do you need to add this? No, but I'm going to. This is a little turbinado sugar. Now this is not enough dessert for me to cut into, do a taste test here, and bring it to my family's for dinner tonight. So thankfully, I have plenty of plums. I have plenty of almond flour. I have enough eggs, and I already made 2 crusts. So I'm gonna get this out of here because this is from when I was making pitas the other day. We're gonna get this baking. I might need to cover it before it's done baking. Let me get those corners tucked in. And hopefully it turns out because I'm about to make a second one. The beauty about when you start to get a little bit more comfortable in the kitchen is you can get a little bit more comfortable kind of making things up. Probably 3 or 4 years ago, I would not have been comfortable, well, yeah, probably 3 or 4 years ago, I would not have been comfortable taking different components of a baking recipe and adapting them to my own. But what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? I guess that it doesn't turn out, or that it's not, I mean, it's gonna be delicious. As long as I don't burn it, I guess. But I don't really want it to not turn out because almond flour is kind of an investment of a ingredient. So white sugar, eggs, almond flour. But I enjoy kind of pushing myself, and I enjoy kind of getting creative and not always following a recipe. I generally enjoy cooking better than baking because you can be a lot more creative. But now that I've spent the last many years practicing baking, I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable getting creative within the boundaries of still trying to follow the rules of baking. So now I still need some almond extract. If I was gonna make this cherry, I would do exactly the same thing. Oh no, I gotta go wash the lid. Except instead of putting plums on the top, I would put cherry, because cherry and almond extract obviously pair really, really well together because that's the flavor of maraschino cherries. This time, all of the plums I'm gonna put in it are gonna be much, much firmer. I need to set aside like, I don't know, an hour and make up like 10 pie crusts and just have them in my freezer. I used to do that all the time. I haven't done that in a long time.
I don't know if I explained it well enough, but I'm taking different components of different recipes and combining them to make this recipe. So I'm taking my pie crust, using that for the base of the galette. I'm taking the almond paste recipe from my banquette recipe. I'm cutting that in half and using that for the almond filling. Now, the plum part, I'm just kind of making up. I could tell that these plums were super, super juicy, and I was worried that if I did not put flour between the almond paste and the plums, it would be a runny mess and the crust would have a hard time crisping up. Now, one thing that worked really well with this recipe in particular in adding the almond paste is it kept that nice layer between the crust and the fruit so that the bottom of the pie crust could get nice and brown. Now, one thing, I think I baked this too high. So I set the oven for 400 because when I think of baking, I typically think of, especially pastry, I think of high heat. But because there's such a thick layer of almond that needed to be cooked through and the plums needed time to cook, I should have probably baked this at like 350 or 375 so that it could bake a little bit longer without the crust getting too overdone. Now, when I was making the second galette, I could see in my oven, because I usually bake with my oven light on, that the galette was starting to open up and kind of flatten out into more of a pizza shape. And so this time I really, really, really pinched the sides of the galette so that they would stay closed and not open up like a pizza. I'll show you in just a minute what I mean by it kind of opening up in the oven.
The beauty of making two is I could see something was happening in the oven that I didn't really like the look of, and I could adjust when making the second one. So what's happening is I think I overfilled it and it's starting to open up. So I put a little dam here of foil and I think it's not opening up anymore. I think we just went to the edge of how much we could put in here. And so I have a little dam here So at the last one, I didn't fill quite as much. And then I think it's gonna take a lot longer to bake. So I put this on it so it doesn't get too brown while it's baking. I decided to go ahead and preheat this oven because I thought they would bake a little bit more evenly if one galette was in each oven. So this next one, I didn't fill it quite as much, and I really made sure, or I tried to make sure, that I sealed each crimp so it wouldn't want to open up. So now I'm just going to clean up this mess here. Got my eggshells in my food recycler. I am loving that. I can link that down below for you if you're interested in that. It's basically full. I need to, sometime this week, take it out and feed some of my plants with the recycled organic like the organic material that's in there that's been recycled. So while I was making the second one, I was thinking about how I'm going to process the rest of these plums, because some of them are definitely on the ripe side. If I was going to be making jam, it would be super easy because I would throw these all into a pot. I would get them cooked down, put them through a food mill, and then make jam out of them, I think. But I want to dehydrate some, so that's the tricky part. I think I have a plan, though, of what I'm going to do. I just wanted to get my kitchen a little bit tidy before starting on this next project. So it looks like my trays are done. I just did them on a quick cycle, so they're still a little bit wet from the washing process. So I'm just gonna put that down so I don't get my counter completely soaked. Plus, will probably be good for the plum juices. It's okay if they're a little wet because we're gonna be putting it in the dehydrator. Anyway, so these are the plums that still have quite a bit of pulp on them around the seeds. Some of these are just the really ripe ones that I didn't want to put in the galette. These are so ripe. So what I want to do is make hot sauce with some of these plums. And I'm going to put my hottest peppers in with this plum. So I'm going to get a sweet, hopefully a sweet, super hot sauce. And should I just cut as much of this pulp away and then throw it in a freezer bag? And it doesn't matter what it looks like because it's going to be a puree. I think that's what I'm going to do. So the ones that are a little too ripe to try to slice nicely for the dehydrator, I'm going to use for the hot sauce. Oh, another thing I'm doing for the galette so that hopefully it doesn't kind of explode like that is I put the galette back in the fridge while my second oven is preheating so that it'll be even colder, like the pastry will be colder when it goes into the oven. That usually helps prevent spreading when it comes to pastries. Some recipes, pastry recipes, even call to chill it before you put it into the oven. I think how I'm going to freeze this is in a deli container. So I'm going to probably have a lot more really soft ones where that came from. So I'm just going to set this here. I'm going to grab a bowl for my compost. Now with my food recycler, I definitely can't put these big seeds in them. I think my chickens can eat around the outside, like eat the flesh part and leave the seeds, but I'm going to Google that. Usually if I give my chickens something new that I've never given them before, I like to Google just to make sure that it is safe for them. Oh, my second oven is preheated. So now I'm gonna go ahead and get my second galette in the oven. And here you can see I tried to really crimp these edges a little bit better, seal them a little bit better, and it's kind of a tighter ball. So we'll see if that helps. I can tell the almond paste is starting to bake and puff up, so I'm gonna take this top piece of foil off, I think, so it can start to brown.
One thing I know for sure that I'm going to make that I didn't get to on this day, and I still have yet to get to it, but my goal this afternoon after I'm done talking to you and showering and getting ready for the day is I'm going to go harvest a ton more plums, and we're going to make some plum jam. I went on a girls shopping trip with my sister yesterday. We went to a little tiny brunch place in Portland called The Griddle. One of the best brunches I've had in a really long time. It was fantastic. And the beauty, it was a Wednesday. If you want to go to brunch and not wait in line, the weekday is the way to go. I think that's the first time I've ever gone to brunch, not on a Saturday or Sunday. And it was glorious not waiting in line. Portland, Oregon is where I grew up, and I live outside of Portland now. But when we want to have a good meal, typically we'll take the time to drive into Portland. And Portland is known for brunch, and you will typically wait a very long time for a table if you want to go to a good brunch place. And it was really fun to be able to go shopping with my sister and go to brunch and not have to wait. So a little life hack that I didn't know about, because normally, we're working on weekdays. But all that to say, the place we went to brunch had a homemade biscuit that you could order on the side, which my sister and I shared one, and it came out with this maple butter and not almond. I'm thinking almond because I'm working with it. Plum jam. It wasn't a spiced plum jam. When I think of plum jam, I usually think of like something heavily spiced. There was a restaurant that sadly is no longer in Portland anymore. It was called the Rhinelander. It was a German restaurant, and they used to serve a plum jam. It was delicious with their rolls, as like when they served the rolls, that would come out with it. But it was pretty heavily spiced with things that I consider more like wintry spices, like clove and cinnamon. And it was delicious, but that's not what I was thinking I would want to make for plum jam for us to eat throughout the year, whether I use that plum jam in like a oatmeal bar, or we use it to flavor yogurt, or we put it on pancakes or waffles or toast or jelly sandwiches. And so when I had this plum jam, when I went to brunch with my sister, I was like, oh, I could just make plum jam and not add the spices, and it would be delicious. That's why I was kind of going back and forth earlier when I was saying, I think I might make plum jam, but I wasn't really set on it because I didn't really want that heavily spiced plum jam. So one thing that I do enjoy when we go out and have a good meal is I like to try different things and then get inspired by coming back into my kitchen and making things in my kitchen by being inspired. Now this project took forever, slicing these in half and then cutting the flesh around the outside to get the extra flesh. This was kind of a tedious process, but it was worth it. Now these plums are very uniquely flavored. When I think of a plum you buy at the grocery store, I think of sweet, sweet, sweet. I am not a huge plum fan of grocery store plums, like those purple ones, but you can see these are kind of like an orangey pink red plum. These are tart and sweet at the same time. It's almost like a sweet tart when you eat them. You get that really sweetness, but you also get that tartness. And so they're balanced really well. So I do think this will make a really delicious plum jam. But when I dehydrated them, they are pretty tart. So I haven't had my family members try the dehydrated ones yet. That is on my list of things to do. But it's been a very, very busy past few days, and I just have not, the plums are done sitting in the dehydrator in my kitchen. I've tried them. I just have yet to say, hey, family members, try these. Tell me what you think. So probably today, that is on my list of things to do, is have everyone try a dehydrated plum and tell me if they like it. And if they do, I'll make more. And if they don't, I won't, because that was very tedious. But since this day, it's been, I think, 2 or 3 days since I actually did this big processing plum project. I bought myself a food mill. I have a huge, massive food mill that's electric that I use when I do big tomato processing days or applesauce, but I don't have like a handheld one. And every year I'm telling myself, I need to buy a food mill. I need to buy a food mill. And so this year I did, because what I was thinking is what I'm going to do today is So I'm going to go outside, I'm going to harvest a ton of plums, get them washed up, throw them into the freezer whole. I'm not going to take the time to cut the flesh away from the pit. And then when I go to make plum jam, I'll put all those frozen whole plums into a pot. I will simmer them, I will cook them down, and then I will use my food mill to get the seeds and most of the skins out. That's my thinking. I have not done that yet. You can tell, well, maybe I will have done it by the time you see this. I don't know. I probably will. But you can still let me know if that was a silly idea or not. So I'm just sitting here cutting these very, very patiently. Again, the plums that are in the deli containers, I'm going to use that for hot sauce. And then obviously I'm getting the dehydrator going. Now the plums were starting to bother my skin. I have eczema on my hands, so I did end up needing to put some gloves on just to protect my skin because they were starting to kind of tingle a little bit and burn just from, I think, the acidity of the plums. And then putting the gloves on seemed to really help. And those galettes, my goodness, I was a little worried about that first one, but it ends up turning out absolutely perfect and delicious. We're about to cut into them and do a taste test, and I'm going to show you just how delicious they are. They got gobbled up most of them got eaten for dessert, but the stuff that was left over, I left at my parents' house, and it was eaten for breakfast the next day.
My dog wants in for the 100th time. Come on in, Orbit. And we got today's projects complete. Even emptied the sink. Those need to be washed, but I'm gonna wait and do that later. Feels good. Okay, so dishwasher's going. We have 1 and about, I don't know, would you call that a half quarts of plums. This was what I got from around the pits, and this will be for hot sauce. These plums are pretty soft, but they're still good. Too soft to cut and try to dehydrate, so I'm gonna turn this into plum jam, I think. Plus, I'll need to harvest some more plums for plum jam, but I'm not gonna do that today. I said we were gonna have these for dinner. I forgot. We are getting ready to go to my mom and dad's house. And so Josh and I are gonna do a quick taste test with these so we can see how they turned out. I actually think both of them look absolutely beautiful, even though this one kind of opened up a little bit. I still think it looks beautiful, and I think it's perfectly cooked, and I think it's gonna be delicious. This one didn't quite get as firm because it was a lot thicker, even though, and it got a little bit brown on the side, but I think it's gonna be good. Even though I use less filling in this one. I thought this one was gonna be a complete flop when I saw it, but I actually think this one is gonna be better than this one when we cut into it. Now here, I got this many plums, 2 full sheet trays and 1 about a 1/3 full. I am gonna turn these on about 110, and these are gonna take probably 24 hours, maybe 115. Let's do 112. And I will show you what they look like when they're dehydrated. I can link this dehydrator. Josh got this for me for my birthday. I want to say when I was my 28th birthday or 29th birthday. I had a small one that I got on Facebook Marketplace, and I was able to gift that to someone, and he got me this big one. So I'm gonna get these washed up in a minute and get those in the fridge. I totally forgot what I was saying, but we're gonna go ahead and give one of those galettes a taste test. Let me call Josh and let him know that he can come on down, and then I will package these up and we will take them to my parents, and I think that will be plenty. I'm glad I made 2. All right, he's gonna come on down. They're nice and crispy, no soggy bottoms. Well, it's a little dark. No soggy bottoms around here. What's this one look like? A little dark too. Josh and I have not eaten dinner yet, so I'm just gonna, probably should have just cut it smaller and shared this tiny piece. I mean, that does look absolutely beautiful. You can see those flakes, even though it wasn't the best pie crust I've ever made, you can still see some flakes in there. My son saw me making these and he asked if I was making a pizza.
It does kind of look like a pizza.
It does.
With some pepperonis.
So which piece do you want? Do you want this piece or this piece?
This one looks good.
Okay.
Is there
Oh, look at that. I mean, look how flaky that piece got.
Is there a frangipan in this? Mm-hmm. Or marzipan?
It's frangipan.
Frangipan.
I think
Frangipan.
I think a marzipan, I think, is like a almond paste.
It's almond paste in
yes, the filling of banquette.
Okay.
So, cheers.
Cheers. Yeah, the plums are interesting. Are all plums like this?
Tart.
They're very, very sweet. The juice is very, very sweet, but the flesh is
Tart.
tart. Is that, they're all like that? Is that?
I don't think so.
These ones are.
I didn't really think I liked plums until we started growing our own because they didn't have that like tartness. They were just sweet, sweet, sweet.
Mm-hmm.
And these are really good. And I like the tartness with the almond paste.
It's good. It's tasty.
It's really good.
That was very tart.
Very tart. Maybe that was like a not very ripe plum.
I don't know. It's good though. Very tasty. I don't think I'm gonna eat this whole thing though.
Well, try this bite. That's just gonna taste like banquette, right? Okay.
The floor's a mess.
It's flaky crust. I do think I overcooked the bottom a little bit.
Oh,
But-
probably that part.
Yep, but this
But
part,
it's pretty good though.
it doesn't taste burnt at all.
It's not a soggy bottom.
It's not a soggy bottom.
Oh yeah. Nice.
Well, thanks, Josh, for doing a taste test.
Happy to.
At this point, this is the only thing we can taste test. Obviously, it's probably gonna be a month or so before I get to that. What I've been doing as I've been harvesting hot peppers is I have a bag in my freezer and I've been cutting the tops off, washing them, cutting the tops off, throwing them in the freezer. When I have a ton of hot peppers, we'll pull out that plum and make a plum hot sauce. And then these are gonna take at least 12, 18 hours or so until they're done. So thank you for being here. I am ready to pack this up. I'm probably gonna change into some comfy clothes. We're gonna head over to my parents' house. I don't have to worry about dinner. So I wanna thank you for being here. If you wanna watch some more videos, I'll pop them there. You can go enjoy between now and my next upload. Thank you for being you. Thank you for being here. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye, friend.